We live? All right, let's go live. Well, Shavua Tov, everybody. Welcome to Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center for our Slichot service that we're doing a kind of a preparation for the High Holy Days that are coming up soon. So if that's a surprise to any of you, that's happening a week from tomorrow night. We begin Erev Rosh Hashanah, and we'll be delighted for all of you to join us, whether you're in the room or if you're on the Zoom. This is the right place, and we're really excited to have you celebrate this year with us. Tonight, with Slichot has a couple of functions. Liturgically, it's a preparation for Slichot, for sort of this idea that we're entering a time of tshuva. We're entering a time of letting go of errors, of bad habits, of things that we regret, offering those up, helping others offer them up in the spirit of mechila, of forgiveness. And so we'll have some of those types of prayers this evening. It's also, I learned a great Yiddish word a while ago, Vorspeise. It's also like a foretaste of the motifs and the music of the High Holy Days. And so you'll hear some of that as well, maybe some tunes you haven't heard in almost 1 year. So we're going to set the tone of the holidays that way. We're going to begin, though, just because we are marking the time from Shabbat into the week, we are going to begin with Havdallah, making that distinction. And so if RJ can hear me, I hope we can dim the lights.
And also, if you want to get closer and stand around here so we can do Havdallah together, that'd be lovely.
Plenty of good seats still available.
Thank you, Archie. It's dark. So we're going to stay within the scope of the camera for two.
That one takes a while to light all the way up.
It's pretty cool. So we're going to have Cass, do you want to hold the Samir? Just
Exactly right.
Robert, you want to?
Sure thing. Thank you.
Of course. Wow. Super cool.
ושבתם מים בששון ממעייני הישועה. אדוני על ישוע עמך מנחתך סלה. אדוני יצבות עמנו משגב לנו יעקב סלה. אדוני יושיע מלך ידנו ביום קוראנו. ליהודים הייתה אורה ושמחה וששון ויקר. כן תהיה לנו כוס ישועות עשו בשם אדוני יקרא. And let's join together. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 ya la la. Ya la ya la 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 la. Ya la 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 la. Ya la la. Ya la la. Baruch Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei peri hagafen borei peri hagafen yai rai la 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 rai rai la 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 rai ya la 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 Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei minei v'samai
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam borei meorei haesh borei meorei haesh Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam hamavdil ben kodesh lechol ben or lechoshet.
Get closer. Ben Israel Amim, Ben Yom HaShvi, L'Sheshet Yamei Maseh. Baruch atah Adonai, Hamavdil ben Kodesh lechol. One more time. המבדיל בין קודש לחול, חטאותינו עם חול, שרינו וכספינו ירבה כחול, והכוכבים בלילה. שבוע טוב, 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 שבוע טוב. אליהו הנביא, אליהו התשבי, אליהו, אליהו, אליהו הגלעדי. מהרה בימינו יבוא אלינו עם משיח בן דוד, עם משיח בן דוד. שבוע טוב, everyone.
שבוע טוב. Ooh.
For a wonderful week full of peace and love for one another and respect. Yes, you may put it right here. Thank you. You can sit down.
Wonderful.
Yes. Arjun's not going to be happy with that.
Well, once again, welcome everybody to PJTC for this Slichot service. We've created a mini Siddur for you for this order of service, and we're going to begin with a reading of Psalm 27, which is customary for this season. Of David, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be frightened? When evildoers draw near to me to devour my flesh, my adversaries and my enemies against me, they stumble and fall. If a camp encamps against me, my heart shall not fear. If a war should rise up against me, then in this I trust. One thing I ask of the Lord, that I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to see the pleasantness of the Lord and to visit his temple every morning, that he will hide me in his tabernacle on the day of calamity, that he will conceal me in the secrecy in his tent, he will lift me up on a rock. And now my head will be raised over my enemies around me, and I will sacrifice in his tent sacrifices with joyous song. I will sing and chant praise to the Lord. Hearken, O Lord, to my voice, which I call out, and be gracious to me and answer me. On your behalf, my heart says, seek my presence. Your presence, O Lord, I will seek. Do not hide your presence from me. Do not turn your servant away with anger. You were my help. Do not forsake me and do not abandon me, O God of my salvation. For my father and my mother have forsaken me, but the Lord gathers me in. Instruct me, O Lord, in your way, and lead me in the straight path because of those who lie in wait for me. Do not deliver me to the desires of my adversaries, for false witnesses and speakers of evil have risen against me. Had I not believed in seeing the good of the Lord in the land of the living, hope for the Lord, be strong, and God will give your heart courage and hope for the Lord. I want to share this reading. It's an excerpt from a wonderful book, the title of which, as I often say, could only be written by a rabbi right before the high holidays. This is real, and you are completely unprepared. Rabbi Alan Liu of blessed memory shares this story. Every year before the days of awe, the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of the Hasidim, held a competition to see who would blow the shofar for him on Rosh Hashanah. Now, if you wanted to blow the shofar for the Baal Shem Tov, not only did you have to blow the shofar like a virtuoso, but you also had to learn an elaborate system of kavanot, secret prayers that were said just before you blew the shofar to direct the shofar blasts and to see that they had the proper effect in the supernal realms. All the prospective shofar blowers practiced these kavanot for months. They were difficult and complex. There was one fellow who wanted to blow the shofar for the Baal Shem Tov so badly that he had been practicing these kavanot for years. But when his time came to audition before the Baal Shem, he realized that nothing he had done had prepared him adequately for the experience of standing before this great and holy man, and he choked. His mind froze completely. He couldn't remember one of the kavanot he had practiced for all these years. He couldn't even remember what he was supposed to be doing at all. He just stood before the Baal Shem in utter silence. And then, when he realized how egregiously, how utterly he had failed this great test, his heart just broke in two, and he began to weep, sobbing loudly, his shoulders heaving, and his whole body racking as he wept. "All right," said the Baal Shem, "you're hired." "But I don't understand," the man said. "I failed the test completely. I couldn't even remember one kavanah." So the Baal Shem explained with the following parable. In the palace of the king, there are many secret chambers, and there are secret keys for each chamber, but one key unlocks them all. And that key is the axe. The king is the Lord of the universe, the Baal Shem explained. The palace is the house of God. The secret chambers are the Sephirot, the ascending spiritual realms that bring us closer and closer to God when we perform commandments such as blowing the shofar with the proper kavanah, with the proper intention. And the secret keys are those kavanot. And the axe, the key that opens every chamber and brings us directly into the presence of the king, where he may be. This axe is the broken heart. For as it says in the Psalms, God is close to the brokenhearted. As I said in the beginning, part of this, the wonder of this particular service is a step into the prayers and the musical motifs of the High Holy Days, and we're going to begin that with Zochreinu L'Chaim on page 5.
So as you open to page 5, I want to say, first of all, how glad I am that you guys are here. It's wonderful to see you on a Slichot night, knowing that you have to be here tomorrow morning. Zochreinu Lechaim. Over the years, I've learned many different melodies for Zochreinu Lechaim. For a long time, the melodies that I heard reflected a sense of plea, which manifests in the way this prayer is written. Zochreinu Lechaim, it doesn't say, okay, now you have to remember us for life. It does say, remember us for life. And it goes on, God, sovereign, who delights in life, and inscribe us in the book of life for your sake, God of life. And I almost can hear the plea of the author in, I would put in parentheses, please remember us for life. And please inscribe us in the book of life. So as much as we lately have been enjoying a more upbeat melody of Zochreinu, which we'll do in a moment, I go back and forth. Probably next year I'll change the melody. I already found another one that I like. But the idea is that in whatever shape or form you choose to engage in the melody, you remember that this is a part of a midah, which is the prayer where we are trying to tell God that please remember us. Remember that God of Abraham, we are a part of that generation of people. It is not like Sim Shalom, where we're asking God to put peace in an imperative mode. This is a plea. And so tonight we'll take the plea a little more in depth. And as we sing Zochreinu Lechaim with Michelle and with Rabbi, members of my davening team, we will close our eyes and gently follow the rhythm with the understanding that it would be a great blessing if we are inscribed in the book of life and if we are remembered for life this year.
Melech Hafetz B'Chaim, Zochreinu Lechaim, Melech Hafetz B'Chaim, V'chatveinu b'Sefer HaHayim, Le'mancha Elohim Hayim, Le'mancha Elohim Hayim. Zochreinu Lechaim, Melech Hafetz B'Chaim. Zochreinu Lechaim, Melech Hafetz B'Chaim. V'chatveinu b'Sefer HaHayim, Le'mancha Elohim Hayim, Le'mancha Elohim Hayim. The wonder of a nigun is everybody already knows the words. So if you catch the tune, please hum along with us just a couple more times. If you turn to page 6, there's a brief responsive reading that I invite you to join me in at the top. Hear our voice, Adonai our God. Be kind and have compassion for us. willingly and lovingly accept our prayer.
Turn us toward you, Adonai, and we will return to you. Make our days seem fresh as they were once.
Do not cast us away from you. Do not take your holy presence from us.
Cast us away to go to know the servants as your images.
Thank you. So now I want to pause for time. I was going to say study, but that sounds so scholastic and it's Saturday night. More a period of inviting you into conversation with one another. If you take a look at pages 7 and 8, you'll see rough photocopies out of our Machzor, the prayer book that we'll be using for the High Holy Days. And I see most of you are sitting with somebody, and if you're not sitting with somebody, then hope somebody will sit with you, because I'd like you to take a moment to look together at the Al-Chait. It begins on page 7, like the lower third of the page. This is the longer confession. It doesn't say long. Just like when somebody says, I'm not getting old, I'm getting older. This isn't the long confession. It's the longer confession. And the reason I wanted to bring this to your attention tonight is you might recognize this as part of this confession on Yom Kippur that we do every year. And it is, what do they call it? It's a litany of sins, if you will. And we take this upon ourselves, and maybe we're standing up and we're beating our chest. It's a whole long list of things that maybe we did this year, but probably didn't, because this is a pretty extensive list. And every time we say one of them, we beat our chest in supplication. And because we usually get to this at a point in the service where we haven't eaten in quite some time, and we're standing and it's crowded and maybe the air conditioner is working, maybe it's not, which could be the right frame of mind for this, we don't stop and think necessarily about what we're saying. And so what I wanted to do is just pause for, 10 minutes or something like that, so that you could look through it and notice things. And the kinds of things that you might notice are not whether I did this thing or whether I did not do this thing, but let's say categories. Some of these are very specific, but some of them kind of cluster into groups. Some of them, some of them have to do with the way we use our hands. Some of them have to do with the way we use our hearts when nobody's looking. Some of them have to do with the way we use our voices. So I want, in the groups that you're in, take a look at this list of sins and notice what kinds of, let's say, errors these are. What categories do you see? Is there something that feels particularly compelling to you, as either you need it personally, no, you don't have to confess here, or whether you think this is something that's sorely needed in our world right now? Some of them may seem more timely than others, and I'd be curious to see what you think feels the most timely. And also I'll ask the question, what's not on this list? What do you think should be on this list? And so I realize this is kind of a free-form exercise, more so than we might normally do. So if you get stuck, if you have questions, things that I can clarify, please raise your hand and I will come over to you. But I wanted us to have a moment to discuss this, to think about it intentionally when we have full energy and possibly full bellies, so that you can take a new understanding into the text this year when you are with us and going like that. So as the rabbis say, Tashma, go and learn and get into your groups and take a look at these things and tell me what you notice. Well, we'll get back together in a few minutes and then we'll discuss what you notice about this text. And thank you for doing this experiment with me. It's starting to sound like a Beit Midrash in here, and I love it. If you run out of sins on the first page, it goes on to another page. I'm not eavesdropping, but I do hear some good discussion going on, and I'm really happy about that. When I hear you start talking about the Dodgers, I know you're done. You know, on the second page, it says, don't rush to do evil. So I won't rush to stop you from talking to each other. So we'll give it a couple more minutes. All right, about 45 more seconds. No pressure. I find that so much nicer than shushing people to sing a little song. So thank you for indulging in this experiment with me. This is not how we normally do sermons. It's usually up here to out there. So, but I wanted to give you a chance, like I said, to see this when you haven't been fasting for, let's say, 18 hours and wavering on your feet on a long day that hopefully won't be too hot this year. So what did you notice? Judy.
It's sort of emotional. The short was just, yeah, I'm sorry, I feel, yeah. It's still, but the long, it's more seeking. It's not things that would immediately, identify you.
Right. So the Ashamnu is more 10 Commandments type stuff. It's stuff that everybody would look at it across the street and say, that's not okay. But this is more how we interact, react to situations. Maybe I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like that how we interact with one another that maybe not quite so obvious as like purse snatching or killing somebody. Right. So thank you. There was a lot of talking here, so I know somebody noticed something.
Was baseless.
Baseless hatred.
So theoretically, if one had a reason for hating someone, it's okay.
Interesting. So we've sinned against you in baseless hatred, but well-founded hatred is not on the list. So is that a what is it? What do they call that? An argument from silence. But baseless hatred. I mean, where else do we, let's see that in our tradition? Tisha B'Av, right? That's one of the associations with Tisha B'Av is the destruction of the Second Temple, and there's an argument made in the Talmud that this came about because of sinat chinam, baseless hatred. Two people got in a fight over a dinner party. They were spreading bad rumors. One thing led to another. Korban habayit, like we lost the Second Temple. But that all started because of this, like you were talking about with the rest, this interpersonal conflict that just seemed to blow way out of proportion. Maybe it wasn't baseless, but like not a good base. Thank you. Anything over here with the, oh, let's see, Sandra. Uh-huh.
Just saying that so many boys have gone in fights already at school for no reason.
Right.
No one reacted, not thinking about their actions.
Right. So bullying is like, it's like hatred almost for the sake of hatred, you know, fighting for the sake of fighting. It's being fractious for the sake of being fractious for no other apparent justification. Thank you. Racism is a form of, well, ask, you know, hate to be difficult, ask the racists, like in the sense that it is like, from the outside, it is baseless hatred, right? But people feel justified when they're doing it, but objectively, no, right? That's, oh, I don't disagree with you.
Mentioned in 7th grade class was that we're more, it's more susceptible and more acceptable to be negative towards people than to look for positive things. So with Lashon Hara, which is the tongue or language is negative or bad, it's easier to criticize initially than to say something positive to something. But if you start saying, look at the positive things, whether they're big or small, it's almost like a domino effect, and you'll notice that, oh, because of your positive demeanor, other people seem to be more positive towards you as well. Or you'll look for the better things, the good things that people are putting out there as opposed to the negative of that.
Right. I mean, I think when I think of social media, for example, I mean, it's various outlets of social media. What would it be like if Twitter was just everybody complimenting each other all the time? Or wouldn't that be nice? You know, this idea of, you know, when somebody sees something wrong, they see a flaw, they point out the flaw, and then the next person piles in and the next person piles in and says, well, you notice these 10 flaws, but I have one more. And it all just kind of, it kind of cascades. And it doesn't have to be that way. It could just as easily be the opposite, where people could cascade, you know, compliments, for example. Maybe we'll make that more popular this year. Thank you. What's missing? Spell out what you mean. What? So Judy said there's no sins of observance. Mm-hmm.
None of these are ritualistic, except for maybe designating God's name. None of these have anything to do with eating, kashrut, any of Leviticus and observance.
Right. There's no, I sinned against you for the sin of cheeseburgers. I sinned against you for having lobster that one time, because the rabbi was talking about it in his sermon a couple of weeks ago. It just made me hungry. But that's a fair point. And just to spell out something that Judy was talking about, there's a teaching of Maimonides in the Mishnah Torah that says, you know, for sins between a person and God, Yom Kippur kind of, you know, but by fasting and observing Yom Kippur, those are the slate is clean. But God does not forgive people for sins against other people until an attempt at tshuva has been made. And there was just doing some learning this year, I came across a teaching from the Shulchan Aruch that says, we don't for those sins between us and people, we need to actively make restitution, preferably in public, if we can, if it doesn't embarrass the other person. But for sins between a person and God, and that's, I think, what Judy is talking about, is sins of observance, doing something on Shabbat that maybe you shouldn't do, or doing something, or dietary things, or, not, skipping mincha one day, right? Those things we are actually not required to confess out loud. In fact, it's discouraged. Those kinds of sins, that are just between us and the Kadosh Baruch Hu, that's between us and God doesn't need us to say it out loud. Why do you think God needs us to say or why do you think it's our custom to say these out loud?
Because of the sins of the community. You're speaking not necessarily, but you're speaking generically. What humans do. So we say them out loud.
Right. I want to play in a couple of words that you said. So Claire is saying these are sins of the community. And as Judy was observing, this is usually between us and other people, social errors or failures. And as Claire pointed out, these are things that maybe I didn't do this, right? If you did like 5 of these things, that would be a pretty, sketchy year, right? But these are so many things we say, but we are in effect confessing on behalf of the community. And maybe that's why this is so extensive. Why would I have to beat my chest for something that I didn't do? Because we're all responsible for one another. We create this community. We support people who are trying to walk a better path. And when people fail, it's not just people failing. Maybe it's something we could have done better too. I heard some discussion over here. I don't know, and you can say, be quiet, John, about this word sin. Does everybody resonate with this word, or does this feel a little bit old-fashioned? Very old-fashioned. What would be a better word? Mistake. There's teaching that the al-chet, it's the word chet is maybe not so much as sin the way we think of sin, but more it's like I really, really tried hard to aim my arrow at that target, and I was a little bit off center, or maybe I was a lot off center. I tried, but I fell short, right? And we have to take responsibility for when we fall short as well. But mistakes, errors. Sometimes you like to use the word failure sometimes because we tried and we didn't quite make it. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it feels a little report. Yeah, sins feels like a mark on your permanent record. It feels very report cardy. But what I like about regret is it's actually the first step toward tshuva. This idea of returning to a better path, a better self, this intention of a good life. It begins with regret. You have to recognize that what you did wasn't your best self at that time. You have to regret that before you can make any sort of step toward the right path. So I just want to close with this idea that when we stand up, this, I don't believe, I statements. I don't believe that we stand up and beat our chests with this long list of things just in case we did one of those things. And it's like the list of all possible things that you could have done wrong. Because I think there are probably things that aren't on this list that should be. Cyberbullying. Lashon Hara has gone to a whole new level in the age of social media. We found new ways to exploit people. We found new things to regret since this list was made. And this isn't to catch us in the act, but I think it's to wake us up to all of these different ways that people are struggling, and to set into our hearts that as a community, we don't have to let people struggle alone. Kol Yisrael, Aravim Ze B'Zeh, we are all responsible. We are all guarantors. We all hold each other up. So thank you for doing this exercise with me. Maybe for some of you, it'll give you a different feeling when we say this in a few days, and I really appreciate you. We are going to continue our service more musically with Shema Kolenu, which is going to be on page 9.
So the Shema Kolenu has its beginning verb in imperative. Shema means listen. It's not a plea, more of a direct command and modern Hebrew. And it always makes me uncomfortable. It makes me think about the chutzpah that someone would have thought in asking, listen to our plea, as opposed to please listen. Can you please? So the melody actually helps with that Hebrew, because the melody goes like this. Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Shema Koleinu. It's very soft. It is as if we were going closer and closer towards the presence of God, gently. So let's try that together. Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Shema Koleinu. And we lift it up a little bit. Let's try that again. Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Koleinu, Adonai Eloheinu, Shema Koleinu. Continues. Bekabel verachamim uratzon et tefilotenu. Hashivayinu Adonai elecha v'neshuva. Chadesh yameinu kekedem. Al tashlicheinu b'lefanecha. Veruach kodshecha al tikach mimenu. Al tashlicheinu le'et zikna. Kichlot kocheinu. Al tasveinu. And it goes back to the beginning. Shema, Shema, Koleinu, Shema, Koleinu,
So if you turn to page 11, we have this shorter list that Judy was talking about, the Ashamnu, and it's our custom to rise. Here. Just to read what we're going to chant in a moment. We abuse, we betray, we are cruel, we destroy, we embitter, we falsify, we gossip, we hate, we insult, we jeer, we kill, we lie, we mock, we neglect, we oppress, we pervert, we quarrel, we rebel, we steal, we transgress, we are unkind, we are violent, we are wicked, we are extremists, we yearn to do evil, and we are zealous for bad causes.
Okay. Together.
Ashamnu, Bagadnu, Gazalnu,
Dibarnu
Dofi, Evinu, Vehirshanu, Zadnu, Hamasnu,
Tafalnu
sheker, Yatsnura, Kizavnu, Platsnu, Maranu, Niyatsnu, Saranu, Avinu, Pashanu, Saranu, Kishinu Oref, Rashanu, Shichatnu, Tiavnu, Tainu, Titanu, If you remain standing for a little bit longer and open up pages 12 and 13, we have our debut, pretty much, of Avinu Malkeinu for the year. I'm going to open the ark, and the cantor is going to begin chanting a few lines in Hebrew, and then if you could follow along as we read some in the English responsively. Just give me a moment while I open the ark.
אבינו מלכנו, חטאנו לפניך, אבינו מלכנו, אין לנו מלך אלא אתה. אבינו מלכנו, עשה עמנו למען שמך, אבינו מלכנו, חדש עלינו שנה טובה.
Avinu Malkeinu, we have sinned in your presence. Avinu Malkeinu, act toward us kindly in accord with your name. Avinu Malkeinu, annul every harsh decree against us. Avinu Malkeinu, frustrate the plottings of our enemies. Avinu Malkeinu, rid your covenanted people of disease, war, hunger, captivity, and destruction. Avinu Malkeinu, do not look toward our sins and transgressions, but blot them out. Avinu Malkeinu, send complete healing to the sick among your people. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us for good in the book of life. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of sustenance. Avinu Malkeinu, inscribe us in the book of forgiveness.
אבינו מלכנו, החזירנו בתשובה שלמה לפניך. אבינו מלכנו, שלח רפואה שלמה לכל ימיך. אבינו מלכנו, זוכרנו וזיכרון טוב לפניך. אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר חיים טובים. אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר גאולה וישועה. אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר פרנסה וכלכלה. אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר זכויות. אבינו מלכנו, כותבנו בספר סליחה ומחילה.
Let's pick up lower on the page. Avinu Malkeinu, cause our salvation to flourish soon. Avinu Malkeinu, raise up your anointed with strength. Avinu Malkeinu, accept our prayer willingly and lovingly. Avinu Malkeinu, remember that we are but dust. Avinu Malkeinu, do this for the sake of those who were martyred for your holy name. And turn to page 14. Avinu Malkeinu, do this for the sake of those who went through fire and water to sanctify your holy name.
Let's join together.
Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Anenu Anenu, Yeranu Masim, Aseh Imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed. Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Avinu Malkeinu, Haneinu, Haneinu, Ki ein lanu maasim, Aseh imanu, Tzedakah v'chesed, Aseh imanu tzedakah v'chesed, v'hoshienu. Avinu Malkeinu. As the ark is open, I'll ask you to stand for just a little while longer. And you can probably see that many of the Torah scrolls have their holiday whites on, but one does not. So I would like to invite up our able Gabbai, Sandra Dreschner, to complete the dressing of the scrolls. The ark is closed. You may be seated. Before we conclude our Slichot service this evening, it's fitting to remember those who we have many fond memories of over the years of occasions such as this one, but who are no longer with us. We have the Kaddish Tome, the Mourner's Kaddish, on page 15 and also on page 16. If any of you are in mourning or marking a yard site this week, I invite you to rise, and we will say the Kaddish Tome with you together. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah.
Amen.
Ba'alma divra kirute v'yamlich malchute b'chayechon uvyomechon uvchaye d'chol beit Yisrael ba'agala uvizman kariv v'imru amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevorach le'olam ol'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei d'kudsha brihu. Ela bin kol birchata v'shirata tushbechata v'nechemata damiran b'alma v'imru amen. Yehi shlama rabba min shemaya v'chaim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Now I'll invite everyone to rise as we end the service the way we began it, and that's with a beautiful, beautiful song.
Yes, I never felt to think of peace. I want to conclude tonight with Oseh Shalom as an invitation to bring what we can bring of peace into this world, even though the prayer talks about the peace that God brings into this world. So let's join together.
Oseh shalom imam, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom,
Yaseh
Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, Yaseh Shalom, Yaseh Shalom, Shalom Aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael. Shalom Aleichem, Shavua Tov, and thank you for being here at this beginning of a wonderful, wonderful Eid Chadash, a wonderful holiday season. If you have any questions about arrangements for this week and making sure you're involved in service, please contact us in the office during the week. And once again, we're really, really grateful to have you celebrate this new year with us.
And if you feel like you're a little hungry or want a snack, there's a table right there with some snacks.
I think right around the corner behind that screen, there's a little bit of a nosh, and we invite you to take advantage.
Shavua tov.
Shavua Tov. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Ali.